But again, yeah. But picture ours, we got to change it. If you stick from March 6th and no, she might start to use. Yeah.
Good evening, fellow councilors, staff, gallery, singular. I'd like to call the Town of Lake Cowichan Annual General Meeting to order at 5:30 on June 27th, 2023. It's held in the temporary council chambers located at 38 on George Street in Lake Cowichan and will be transmitted electronically on our YouTube channel. We to acknowledge our gathering this evening on the traditional ancestral territories of Subat's First Nation with gratitude for their neighbors. And with that, we have the annual report in front of you. You wish to speak to that, Ms. Gill or Mr. Fernandez?
Well, the only thing is I guess the meat of the report is the financial statement. Everything else is basically just a synopsis of what occurred in the year 2022.
And we always get questions about capital reserves, etc., and how they can be expended. So I think it's important that people not look at the one number. There are some reserves that can only be utilized in certain activities, for instance, water, only in water, only in sewer. And with our obligations for asset management, and asset retirement, those funds will be expended during the lifetime of this infrastructure project. Is that correct?
Correct.
Anything else? Any councilors with any comments? Some great pictures there. Thank you to Ms. Gill for setting this up. And public input on the 2023 and 2022 and that's where all good. Great. Thank you very much. Take it home, have a look. If you do have any questions, feel free to general@lakecouch.ca. And that applies for people at home. If you have access to the agenda of the OGM, feel free to email any questions to general@lakecouch.ca. You certainly may, Councilor Sanders.
I think I asked this question when we had the auditors here regarding, so we don't see the real specifics when we're doing budget, right, like line by line. But the fuel, so for the last 2 years, the fuel budget's been very low. And then like in 2022, it was a budget of 15.5 and the cost was 82,264. And the year before it was 12 something. And then, so I'm just, this year, did we increase the budget?
So the way the equipment charges work is anytime the equipment is being used, they're all numbered. They're coded to whatever expense they're being used to at an equipment charge out rate. So we don't budget those expenses. They're allocated out in the other budgets. So each job that you have has a component for fuel and insurance and repairs on the equipment.
So this isn't an issue then, just.
It's not an issue. It's just on that schedule because we don't have a budget for it. We do see the equipment allocations and that they're just added in with the wages expense below. Yeah. So that's why that looks that way. Okay.
And then really the revenues exceed the expenses, so that amount goes into
And that's the equipment reserve. So the difference, what we make over what the expenses are for fuel repairs. Any of whatever we make on that is what goes into the equipment reserve for public works department purchases.
And on page 42, for instance, under taxation and grants in lieu of taxes, there's a number of collections for other governments that we have no jurisdiction over, which are just sent to us. For instance, Vancouver Island Regional Library Board, police tax levy, the hospital district, and the school tax levy. So just, that is not within our budget process, just so everyone is aware that we do not set those rates, those come from senior levels. Public government entities.
So, with the regional hospital, with the new hospital, do you think that will increase on our?
All right, yeah, it's going up. In fact,
There is a large capital reserve within the regional hospital board that has been accumulating for a number of years, which will significantly accommodate 40% that the regional district has to pay towards that new facility. And you happen to know that there will not be paid parking in the new hospital that was brought forward by previous director, that he was adamant or did find that that was appropriate. There are a number of other principles that do. We felt that if they're to visit a loved one who was near the end of life, so we worry about having to go out pay for the meter. That'll be one thing that it's not there. There's a large First Nations input in that facility as well. So it's going to be an awesome facility once it's finished, a long time coming. And there's still discussion as to what will occur with the current hospital as to what they will call constructed. That's a little aside from our AGM, but it does have an impact on our statements. Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Goldman.
Just a curiosity, Ms. Bill, under the property tax exemptions, both the, I know I'll get the names wrong, the King George, Evergreen, and the Wilson Manor, they no longer get exemptions anymore. Okay.
Anything else? Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I was just gonna draw everyone's attention to page 49 and after that. The graphs there do pictorially show a lot of good information. Page 49 starts with revenues by percentage, so this is all of the town revenues and how they're broken out. And below it, the expenses by percentage, so you can see how they go to the different departments and areas of the town. Page 50 shows the taxation revenue. This is all of the revenue that we collect. Keep in mind that we only keep the 2.4 million that's shown in blue there. Everything else is collected for other jurisdictions and then paid out to them. And same below, one graph shows the actual amounts. Below you have the percentages. And then if you flip the page to page 51, this shows you the of the town portion that we collect in revenue for taxation. How much of it is from the different classes? So you can see commercial, we collect 11%. Residential is our main source of taxation revenue, 87% comes from there. And below you can see how that income has increased from 2019 to 2022. So there is some interesting information in those pages that follow.
Consistent with the residential covering around 87–89%. It would be nice if we had an opportunity for some other industrial owners within our municipality, but unfortunately, it's constrained by our municipal boundaries, aside from other options, perhaps that may not be very comfortable with the members of parliament. That's the only alternative that we will have.
The revenue component is increasing on the residential, and all the other factors are decreasing.
And that is putting strain on some taxpayers in the age of group that are reliant on pensions, et cetera, I've received them the cost. Aside from classifications, I don't think there's much more. The services are required, asset management is required. The archaic property tax system is the only avenue that we have. During federal Conference, there was discussion on transitioning to a more fiscally option for the future after we pass that fund that is currently going to expire in June 2024. Explaining to the senior levels of government that we provide 70% of the services and only get 8% of the tax dollar per $1. So the importance of the infrastructure deficit is uniform throughout the country. We've heard that from large communities, small communities. And when a small community in Alberta is in a revenue sharing formula in the oil and gas industry and has $10 million in the capital reserve fund that they cannot spend because they have no capital projects, that shows you the disparity of revenue sharing and non-revenue sharing. I just wanted to bring that forward with FCM and other associations will be working on this futures. Ordinary, tied to inflation, tied to population growth. So it isn't just stagnant, it's a steady income, no will be reliable in the future. So it'll be interesting to see that come forward and how that impacts our bottom line taxation. Also on 52, number of tax deferrals in dollars, that's not numbers, so.
The top graph is numbers, bottom is
94 in 2022, so it's gone up a bit. And one of the cumbersome things there is another group is trying to encourage the provincial government to include utilities within that deferral, and that's not currently allowed. We would receive that later when the house is transitioned to once it's sold. But until that occurs, they are still required to pay utilities. We're not within the tax. Anything else? Nothing, Mr. Frisbee?
Went through a crazy town last week.
And what page was that snake on?
Well,
It's a stick with a head.
No, there's a snake there, see it?
I know, it's a
It's
stick with
biting
a
another
head.
stick. That's page 11.
I got it.
Good evening, sir.
Good day, good day.
How are you? We're just
You wanna-
finishing up on the annual general meeting.
Okay.
If you do have a chance to look at it and you have any concerns or questions, please feel free to email a later date. We do our best to get an appropriate answer in a timely manner. With that, any other input on the 2022 annual report? Again, a big thank you to Ms. Gill for putting this together and presenting it to us tonight. Looking for adjournment.
Oh,
Moved by Councilor Marcus, seconded by Councilor Frisbee. See you there,
that's
sir.
all right.
In favor? Opposed, if any?